Afternoon, everyone. My name is Jordan Bear, and I teach the history of photography here in the History of Art department at the University of Toronto. And it's a great delight today to welcome you to this opportunity to reflect upon the great career as a photographic artist. We're now so accustomed to seeing photography in art museums and cutting edge galleries that it's surprising to them what a recent change since. Although a few pioneers courageously made the art of photography as a medium of fine arts equal expressive potential to painting or sculpture, it was not until the 1970s that this field entered mainstream. Elevation was accomplished through the combined efforts of scholars, curators, critics, and artists, all of whom had distinctive roles to play in persuading the public that the camera was no mere recording machine, objective and indifferent to the aims of its users. While these constituencies have been rightly recognized for helping to lift the veil, one key player who integrates all of these disciplines must be added to the roster. The dealer-gallerist is the fulcrum of this system, balancing the aesthetic eye and the entrepreneurial spirit that were needed to make photography an object of serious attention. The individual who has done this consistently from the beginning and with great insight is the woman that Maclean's rightly dubbed the First Lady of Photography, Toronto's own Jane Corkin. When, as a recent arrival to Canada, Jane first carved out a few rooms to display photographs, she was in fact creating a space for the medium itself within the larger culture. Over the following decades, she would nurture photography in galleries of her own, mounting a series of internationally recognized, groundbreaking exhibitions. And without question, Jane would become, as the Globe and Mail put it, easily the country's top dealer in the field. But even this superlative fails to capture the range of her contributions. More accurately, Jane's gallery made photography the center of the art world in Toronto, and in turn made Toronto a center of photographic activity in North America. It was here that photography's full aesthetic, cultural, and commercial prowess was cultivated. This transformation was so radical and successful that nobody now doubts the primacy of photography in artistic practice. Indeed, it's now the medium in which many of the most ambitious artists choose to work. It has become synonymous with art, rather than a marginal curiosity. The story of this transformation has been told before, and Jane's role is widely recognized. But today, we'll have an opportunity to hear more directly from the source. I'm doubly pleased that Jane's interlocutor will be Brandon Kaufman, a writer, critic, and filmmaker whose work appears regularly in the Toronto Star and in prominent international venues like Art Forum and The Guardian. Even as his finger is on the pulse of art making in present-day Toronto, his work is always enriched by a deep historical understanding of how we arrived here. Together, Brandon and Jane will explore some of the images and stories that have made her career so consequential. Please welcome Jane Corkin and Brandon Kaufman.
I think I wanted to start this hopefully wide-ranging conversation about your life and its intersections with the status of photographic arts in Canada and in the art world generally, with Irving Penn, who you would later know and show. And in our conversations, you told me Penn was a very important early figure for you as you were growing up in Boston and kind of instrumental in your appreciation of art. So I guess looking at this picture, what did he mean to you?
He was influential, but I didn't know who he was. I just knew as a teenager growing up in Boston, we would look at fashion magazines, Vogue. Does anybody maybe remember the Clinique ads? Clinique is still a makeup company, and they used to have those great green boxes, and they hired Penn to do the commercial shoots. And I knew just instinctively when I was 8 and 9 that the pictures were beautiful. So I used to rip them out of the magazines and save them in a file. You know, I didn't know who Irving Penn was, but they were great images. So that was really just instinct. It wasn't Irving Penn to me. They were just different from anything else in the magazine.
Was it photographing as well, or was this just entirely collecting? A kind of early collecting?
I guess you can think about it as an early collecting. I mean, I didn't think about it then, but I was a kid who liked things. I bought things, you know, I looked at things. I was the kid who had a camera at family events and was behind the scenes shooting family functions.
Hmm.
You know, this is before digital cameras, you know, so you needed to have a real camera. You know what I mean? Real camera. Everybody here who's, you know, over 40, right?
So after you move, well, rather, you started at Queen's, where you studied art history. After that, you moved to Toronto, and you became acquainted with and worked under David Mirvish. Could you talk a little bit about what Mirvish Gallery meant to the city?
So that's a David Mirvish gallery, which was on Markham Street, and it was built by John Simpson Architects, which was a great contemporary space at the time. And that's David in around probably before my time there, but I think he built the gallery in 68 or 69. That looks like a photograph from that moment. From the, who knows about fashion, from the lapels. I think it looks late 60s, but that was the gallery. He brought major contemporary painters to Toronto. He brought Morris Louis, Hans Hofmann, the first generation of Europeans who came to America. Second generation after that was Robert Motherwell, Helen Frankenthaler, Frank Stella, Jules Olitsky, Larry Poons, and others, Milton Avery. So it was a great place to learn about contemporary art. And that was the main gallery right there. Beautiful, beautiful space. So it was a great opportunity to look at contemporary art and to be in the vortex of the international art world because we shared exhibitions with major dealers in London and New York. And also part of our program was Jack Bush, who was Canada's great color fill painter, who of course worked with Ken Noland and Jules Olitsky and Helen Frankenthaler and the color fill painters who lived in New York. So that was the kind of traffic, New York, London, Toronto. It was a great place to be at that moment.
Was he showing photographs at the time?
So I started showing photographs at the Mirvish Gallery because it was a moment that photographs were interesting. So I started looking at photographs. I started writing to the practitioners who were all around, and everybody was eager to talk and to share experiences. Andre Cortege invited me to look at works in as early as 74 at his home. He lived at number 2 Fifth Avenue, and it was great. I would go and look at pictures with him all day. I think I was the first person to buy vintage works, in other words, works that he made in 1925 and 26. They were carte postale, mounted on vellum, and we'd look at these works. He made them in Paris at that moment when he lived there from 1925 to 1936. And he would say, sure, if you can sell these, that would be great. He said, they're $1,500 each. You can't imagine. That was an enormous amount of money for a photograph at that time. So I said, okay, we'll buy 6. I came home and David said, how did New York go? I said, well, kind of interesting. Got a great opportunity to see wonderful works. And he said, did you buy any? I said, yes, David, we bought 6. David was paying. I couldn't sell any in Toronto. I tried. And so I got on a plane to go to London to see John Casman. John Casman was a famous painting dealer. He was known as Cas. Cas bought 2. I felt like a little bit out of the, little bit out of the hot water now. And then the rest is kind of history because it wasn't easy, but over the course of time, mostly the market was New York. So, as the market in New York began to develop, there began to be people that would look at those works. And Andre Kertész was pivotal because he always wanted to sell for more than Stieglitz, for example, because for Andre, he was a poet and Stieglitz was linear. And if a Stieglitz photograph went for whatever kind of money we heard about then, he'd say, you can have the next one of mine if you can sell it for more than his. It's really because they were artists who never really had a lot of attention paid to them, so their doors were open to me. Oh, there's Andre.
There's an image of you in Kertész, and we hear about this legendary photographer. I'm curious about your relationship and how it continued to develop at Mirvish Gallery and through your own gallery when you.
Gallery at Front Street, corner of Front and University. We were on the 6th floor, 144 Front Street West. That was the first gallery. That poster was designed by Arnold Maggs. It won a poster award when he was still a designer before he became a photographer. He was a great designer. Won a poster award in New York. Pat Fitzpatrick was my one employee at the time. And Andre came, that was a book. He was doing a book signing. Andre allowed me to curate the first show. Let's see. This is a really interesting book because that was the first show, the first retrospective he had before the Met show and before the Art Institute of Chicago show. The Winnipeg Art Gallery sponsored a show that went across Canada, and it was called A Lifetime of Perception. Thank you for the picture. I'd forgotten about that. It went to something like 12 institutions across the country. There weren't a lot of photography curators at that time. I think the National Gallery of Canada, we had Jim Borkman. I don't think there were others in this country. Chicago, Art Institute of Chicago, Boston had Cliff Hackley, MoMA had, I think, other than that, not sure there were others even in the US, with few photography curators. So here, we didn't have a lot of people who were thinking about photography. So he gave me the opportunity to make the show. The show was to open in Winnipeg because they sponsored the exhibition. And I was picking Andre up at his apartment at number 2 Fifth Avenue. We were flying to Winnipeg. They were doing this huge celebration, a black tie. And because of his Hungarian roots, they had got a whole Hungarian theme going, with violinists, from the countryside, all dressed up, like his photographs from about 1914 to 1917, which, of course, they had seen in photographs. And then Andre died. So I called Winnipeg to say, I'm sorry that, I won't be at the opening. I'm going to be in New York at the memorial. And they said, oh, no, you'll be here. You'll go to the memorial. And after the memorial, you'll come to Winnipeg and you'll give the eulogy for Mr. Kertész. So I was in, like 20-something, 6, 7. I thought, oh, my goodness. So Hilton Kramer gave the memorial in New York at the Met. And then I went to Winnipeg, and I was in the Prime Minister's suite because clearly they expected Andre Kertész. They weren't giving me the Prime Minister's suite. Can you imagine being my Prime Minister's suite was amazing. It had like a dining room table for 18 people. It had 3 bedrooms and all kinds of sitting rooms. And there I was by myself in the Prime Minister's suite, didn't know what to do with myself. So I called Robert Enright, who was a writer at the time, everyone knows. And Robert came over and brought dinner, which was McDonald's hamburgers, but we sat at the big dining room table and before the big event.
So at the beginning of your relationship, why do you think that you two had such an affinity. When you opened your first gallery on Front Street, was your first show. You were in your late 20s at this point, early 30s. You know, what did he see in you to have such trust?
You know, we looked at works together, and looking at works together, you know, even when you do it today with artists, you look at works together, you make comments, you feel the work. I think the person you're working with knows that you feel it, that you see it, that it engages you, that it speaks to you in some way. With Andre, he made modernist works, you know, really before a lot of the modernists made them the way I saw it, particularly. And we talked about those works. Those are works he made that's overlooking the Royal York, from my Front Street gallery, looking into the Royal York. He called it Smoke in Toronto. You might know Wandering Cloud or Lost Cloud that he did in New York. That was a kind of reference to that work. He can't wait. This is a work he did in Toronto of Vanessa Harwood, who was a principal dancer with the National Ballet of Canada. She was my sister-in-law. And I had taken her to the ballet, and she was dancing with Rudy, as of Nureyev, who she called Rudy, of course. And Andre asked if he could photograph her. He said, last time I photographed a dancer, I was in New York, and they knocked the camera out of my hand because, you know, we weren't allowed to photograph on stage because there were unions. So he said, I'd really like the opportunity to photograph dancers. So I asked Vanessa if she could make arrangements. And that was one of the artists that we knew, a warehouse, that she did some things for Andre.
So more of his.
So over the years, I would go early. It was a great relationship because we developed a way of looking together. And I would go to New York when I'd have a portfolio case. I would take some of the work of artists that I was showing here, of Thaddeus Salonia, who I worked with early on when I opened the gallery, and some of the artists I worked with in the very first years. And when I couldn't pay rent in Toronto, I'd get on a plane and go to New York and see if I could find a client in New York. And sometimes I would meet with Andre, and if I met with Andre early enough, what would happen is we would start with breakfast, which would be a cortege sandwich, which is a very thin piece of bread toasted, a glob of jam, and a little piece of sour cream on the top. So it's very pretty. You know, it's white and yellow, and then a piece of bread. We started with a cortege sandwich, and then we looked at pictures all day, and I kept having to cancel the other meetings because he was so fascinating, and the kinds of work. I mean, when he had problems with balance at some point, and that's when he started using the Polaroid. And he made those Polaroid pictures so he could do it interiorly.
You mentioned having to go to New York to sell these pictures. What was the response like in Toronto? Was there a lot of resistance to selling photography at this point?
Well, you know, at the Mirvish Gallery, we created, I started David's photography department, which became the upstairs of the David Mirvish Gallery. And we did really fabulous shows, and we had great people. I invited Andre there. We had Bernie Thabit there. So we had a symposium, photography symposium conference there. Trying to think of all the great people that came. There were so many people, but what happened is that lots of people viewed, lots of people loved it. There were very few buyers. It was really hard for people to migrate from Jack Bush, which was a challenge for local people because they were used to Group of Seven. So migrating to Jack Bush wasn't easy. Can you imagine migrating to Andre Cortege or Thaddeus Salonia or some of the people who were visionaries in the field of photography? You know, this was really mid-70s. Wasn't that easy.
Mm-hmm. And so,
I mean, we did Atget shows, we did 19th century shows, we did, you know, really Julia Margaret Cameron shows. Everything was available. We did shows of everything.
this great picture he took.
No, I wish. That was the opening of my first gallery. Andre was supposed to come to the opening of the gallery. He told me when he was coming, and he showed up 2 days early. And he didn't tell me. He booked a hotel. He came, And I was unpacking, and I used to get rid of steam. You know, now I just grouch at people, but before I just got rid of steam by doing cartwheels or stuff like that. I didn't know he was there, and he was around the corner taking pictures in my gallery while we still were finishing walls and unpacking boxes. There are
And
the
another great
boxes.
picture. And so you opened, your first show is Cortege. How is the response to this new gallery of modernist photography?
So the first gallery was, well, one thing, we were on the 6th floor. We were near the financial district. It was the first gallery in Toronto not to be storefront, not to be in the gallery area of Yorkville where people bought, more precious items of clothing and fashion and handbags. So we were in an area that was not typical for art galleries. But I went there because I wanted to take the Saturday business, which was really the only art business in Toronto when partners could be together when they weren't working, and spread it over the week. So we located near the financial district so people could come during lunch. And people came. People came at lunch. They had the opportunity to sit in viewing rooms and look at art in an intimate setting. So it was like a new idea, one, to just have photography, and two, to come during the week and look at photographs in the middle of the week. And it started, the first show was successful because people came to wish me well. It was the second show that was the problem because nobody wishes you well twice. So I can't remember what the second show was, but I had a great landlord, I have to say. And when I couldn't pay my rent, my landlord was so great. He used to come in. My second show might have been Penn, and my landlord, when I couldn't pay rent, would come in and buy a picture.
Oh, wow.
I had really great people here that wanted me to succeed. Seriously.
Behind you, we have advertisement for your show, this great picture of Woody Allen dressed as Charlie Chaplin. Can you speak a little bit about Penn? And as we established, he was, whether you knew it or not, an early influence of yours. How was
Penn
the?
that's kind of a silly thing that the Star did. That poster was, we did that for a show, maybe did it say, I think 81, but Penn was an amazing gentleman. He just, going into Irving Penn's studio was like entering a chapel. He was very peaceful. He was very smart. He had many people working for him, and everything was very quiet. He had always classical piano music. Usually I could, and he was also happy to have the opportunity to show his work. He was pleased to be able to have an exhibition in Toronto. Penn never went to any show. The only show through his life that I know, and I think his last show was at the Met in 2000, and do you remember, was it 2007? I think it's 2007. That's the only show in the whole time I knew him that he went to. He did go to that show. All the other shows he never went to. But he did show up at my exhibitions, and then he would send me a note, say it was hung beautifully. He never told anybody he was coming, and he never announced himself, but he came to see it. Got on a plane, looked at it, got off the plane, managed to go to the show, and let nobody know. That's how discreet he was.
Another of the great 20th century photographers you showed and had a relationship with was Richard Avedon.
Or Dick, as we like to call him. He was either Mr. Avedon or Dick, depending on how well we liked him at any one time. Where's Paul? You could probably respond better to that. He liked to be called Dick, yes. You worked for Mr. Avedon, didn't you?
Ran his foundation.
Very different for personality than Penn. A kind of frantic guy, the opposite of peaceful, I would say. Probably always in Penn's shadow, and probably felt always he was in Penn's shadow. Maybe 10 years his junior, and always felt that he didn't have the recognition. They were all kind of competitive, I think, if you think about it, and all of them were starved for museum exhibitions, for people to write about them, for people to understand them. I mean, these were really a great group of image makers who, you know, had lived long lives before they got any recognition. So, you know, I was an easy in because I was interested. But, you know, they didn't have a lot of people interested in them at the time, if you think about it. And you know, now there's a whole group of younger people who understand photography and think and write about photography. But it wasn't like that before in those days, wouldn't you say, Jordan? So, you know, he was grouchy and, you know, that's a, the generals of the Daughters of the American Revolution is kind of a funny picture.
And as a dealer, how do you manage these egos? If you're showing Avedon and you're showing Penn, is this, I'm sure, something that you've taken with you throughout your career?
It mostly, the artists that I show are really great, amazing people. And, you know, maybe Dick was that, maybe not. I didn't live in New York, so I don't have to deal with them every day. But the people that I'm attracted to, and probably that are attracted to me, are people that work from a spiritual place and people who are not interested in the kind of fixings of society. They're happy to have enough to do their work day by day, week by week, and pay for their studios, pay for their art materials, and present their work to the world. And if they can live like that, they feel they've added something to the world, and it's a satisfied life. They don't tend to be marketers. The people I work with, they tend to be deeply spiritual and care deeply that their work is understood. And I think that for the artists in the room, I probably would agree with me that that's more what they care about. I mean, we have to sell the work because by getting it out, you know, people appreciate it. And by getting it into museums, you know that it gets to a broader audience. By people writing about it, it's even a broader audience. And the more people that understand it, the more it might affect society in a positive way. But I mean, if artists just make work and it just sits in a basement, doesn't.
Part of the doing of the work is having this discerning eye as a dealer. I'm curious, when you look at this Arbus picture that you've shown,
It's in the current show.
what do you see? Why do you include this in a show, for example?
Well, is Stephen here? Maybe not. Stephen included this in the show. This show is actually put together by a very good client who's a very big collector, whose name is Stephen Brown. He teaches here at U of T in the medical school, and he knows a lot about photography. Why is this? Why did I buy it? And why did he put it in the show? Well, she's kind of laughing at us. You know, this is a person in a wheelchair who doesn't have a perfect life, but who's trying every day to do everything she can to exist. Michelle, you can probably comment on that. And it's a very compassionate picture because it just shows her as she is. And it's funny because, you know, I don't know, it's Halloween and she's wearing a mask and she wants to be the person in the mask and maybe not the person whose face is under the mask. So, you know, maybe she's laughing at us and that's okay. I don't know, I love it. I love everything about it. I love that the wheelchair is off center and I love that it's not a Diane Arbus that everybody knows. I'm not the person that usually loves the iconic picture. If it's the pot boiler, it's probably not in my collection. You know, it gets overseen, you know.
Here is an archival picture of something that I don't really have a memory of, which is Queen Street before it became Queen Street.
Wow.
Which is also to say Queen Street before you moved there. Your second gallery moved in the mid 80s.
1985, yeah.
1985. Can you talk about that move, about the new space, sort of your feelings as you journey on to the second part of your gallery's life?
So that was, look, that's the City TV building. We went to the corner of John and Queen before City TV. We used to call it the wedding cake building. That's when the Afghani shops there and the hash pipes and does anybody remember what the bookstores? It was such a great couple of blocks, right? The bamboo, the restaurants, the hippies, people selling really great funky jewelry. You know, it was a great neighborhood. We moved there, also not storefront, third floor, to create a great space and to have private viewing rooms where people could come and look at art in an intimate way, and to have larger spaces, to have more exhibitions. And eventually that became, Av Isaacs moved there, Elkis Klonaritis was there showing the painters of the moment. I mean, it was a fantastic moment. Richard Avedon had, I can't remember if that show was there or in the other space. Richard Avedon actually had his first show where he gave an interview to the press for the very first time before he gave one in New York. And here he gave it at CBC and with a really, I'm trying to remember the name of the writer, but I think we have it on tape somewhere. And that was the Dick Avedon Show.
And as Jordan mentioned, by this point, actually by the early 80s, you're already being called the First Lady of Photography. Just to take a pulse check, as we've moved through some decades of your career, kind of where is photography at this point by the mid to early 80s, and as you begin at your second gallery? Did you feel less resistance? Did you feel more? Yeah.
I think early 80s. You know, there was an exuberance. We were a small group of people in New York. We started an organization in New York called the International Association of Photography Art Dealers. There was, let's see, Rudy Kicken from Cologne and Harry Lunn, of course, from Washington, D.C. and Paris, and G. Ray Hawkins from L.A., Maggie Weston from Carmel. I think there were 8 or 9 of us. I'm trying to remember who everybody was. QC Pfeiffer, who worked for Robert Schulkoff in New York, and myself. And if you think about that, most of those people aren't around anymore. But it was an exuberant time because they were all enormously interested in photography, and we would go and find photographs and just look at everything that became available. The first auction started at Martin Gordon. By the early 80s, Sotheby's and Christie's had auctions of photography. We would all go to the auctions. Nobody knew that much, but we just bought everything we saw. And between the 8 or 9 of us, we just bought it, whatever it was. We saw it, we liked it, we bought it. So a lot of it was even misattributed. You know, on our walls, I think I have something that I bought as a Grit Colin Fisher, and it is not a Grit Colin Fisher, it's a Hans Mayer. But it looked good. It didn't, you know, it wasn't, we were looking at a field that looked interesting, so we bought it. Don't forget, this was also the moment before the Met started their photography department. Do you remember when they started that? Yeah, so even the Met's department, which is formidable, didn't happen until 1990.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I want to talk about this moment because this is something that's fascinating to me. You brought Robert Mapplethorpe here for the launch of his book, Lady Lisa. Can you talk about Mapplethorpe, about his work, and about the event?
Now look at there's Bob signing of books. Yeah, that was great. He came. He was a delicate soul. I don't know if you've seen pictures of him, but he's actually quite tiny, quite small, with black leather and lots of chains. Yeah, he was a lovely guy. It was people lined up for his book and to see him and meet him. It was a fantastic show. We were a little worried that the National Guard would close us down, but they didn't. We did show some photographs that, you know, might not have been so Toronto friendly at that moment, but maybe we had them in the back. But when I think back even to the early 80s, I think ICP started around that moment. And I think that I had a group of clients that we would go to New York. I would take a table at the fundraiser at ICP, and we watched the International Center for Photography build their whole department and their whole museum during that moment. It's where I met my friend Pat Schoenfeld, because there was a big photography symposium in Rochester. So there were things beginning to happen. ICP in New York, Rochester did a symposium. They invited a few of us to speak. I was one of a few speakers. Rudy was there, Harry Lund was there. There weren't a lot of us. We were a few people. Most people just trained in some art history, probably not photography history, you know.
Another of these kind of now great figures is Nan Golden, who you brought.
Yeah, so Nan was one of the great talks of all time, because you really understood deeply the groundwork for why she became an art dealer. She gave the most moving talk about her life possible. But originally she said, it was 1995 already by then. And I asked her for a show. She said, I'm happy to do a show with you, but I want you to know I don't have time to choose it, and I can't come to Toronto. And I said, that's okay. Look, I feel quite comfortable. I can choose the show without you, Nan. Thank you. I'll do the show. And the work speaks for itself. I don't need you to come and speak for the work. So in typical Nan fashion, she called 2 days before the show, and she said, I want to come to Toronto, and I'm going to give a talk to your clients. So I had to scurry around. We had to get it organized. Of course, everybody wanted to come. So we did it as a fundraiser for Power Plant. We made people pay $15 a ticket because we knew we'd be mobbed. It would be really tough and the gallery wasn't that big. It only held maybe 100 people. But it was great. She gave an enormously great talk, like Bob. They spoke from the heart. That was one of the works in Nan's show. I think that was at the Art Gallery of Ontario now. One of my clients gave that to the AGO.
Do you remember what was so moving about the talk?
Yeah. Do you want to know about Nan's life? Nan's sister had some issues, maybe bipolar, and maybe some medical issues that weren't diagnosed and weren't diagnosable at that time. Not medicated well at that time. So her parents and she came from Washington, D.C., and they wanted to commit her sister, which they did do. And her sister took her own life, and Nan was very close to her sister. And at that moment, as Nan put it, her parents pulled the shade down in the house, and what they spoke about inside the house was never allowed to be spoke about outside the house. And Nan had a deep need to talk about the emotion and the feeling that happened after her sister died. And so she did it through photography. She went to the Boston Museum School. When she, did the body of work called The Ballad of Sexual Dependency, nobody knew she was doing the first document on AIDS. They thought it was drug abuse. They didn't know what it was. And after we learned about the AIDS, after we learned about AIDS and we understood really what she was documenting, the world started taking it on. It was at that moment, I didn't know, and they hadn't announced the Whitney show yet. So the reason she wasn't coming to my show is because she was working on the Whitney show, which was eventually opened, I'll Be Your Mirror, which traveled the world for not only many years, many decades. It may even still be on the road. I'm not sure. So she was a big force, and as you know now, a big force in really taking those drugs on the market, which she feel have led people to drug addiction.
Definitely. Great Nan Golden picture. Sarah Moon is another of these photographers. You met her and
Sarah.
really...
Sarah's great. Sarah's great. Like for all the photo curators in the world, please make shows for all the living people who haven't had shows, because Sarah Moon lives in Paris and is alive and well, as is Sheila Metzner. I mean, this conference started about women. There are so many living women who really are still being ignored, largely, who have had major contributions. Sarah started life as a model in maybe some of you know the Cacharel ads. I don't know for those of you who ever looked at magazines. Remember the Cacharel? She photographed Cacharel, yes. Yeah. Oh, you met her then. I met her after then. My friend Pat is 95. She's from New York. Can't believe it.
You met her at
We
a
were on the board together at ICP.
Jen, you met her at a antique show, is that?
No, I met Sarah at, it was a tabletop show in New York. It might have been an APAD show. It might have been a photography show. And you know how an APAD, the first years we had tabletops and we had a few pictures on tabletops. We call them tabletop shows, a few photos. And this woman came up to me and started talking to me about some of the photographs I had. I think I had maybe a Julia Margaret Cameron and a Walker Evans and maybe a Thaddeus Alonia. And, you know, I always had a Canadian next to a name they would know. And then after a long talk, she said, "What are you doing among all these merchants?" So I always had that kind of relationship with the artists that I was more interested. I was really better at talking about the art than selling the art. I would have been better. I would have done better financially if I had a better salesperson next to me. I was better at making the relationship than I was at closing the deal. So for anybody, you know, young kids who are ever going to see this, if you learn from financial institutions, you know, they're really good at doing what they do. They have all the different types, you know, the guy who opens, the guy who says the story, and the guy who closes. You know, we were never good enough. I didn't know enough about business to have all that around me. So I created the relationships better than I knew how to sell.
You mentioned placing the Canadian photographers alongside the Americans or international artists like Thaddeus Alonia, Carol Marino, and later Barbara Assman. You kind of championed as on a more international scene. What were some of the difficulties or and even some of the successes that you had?
This is a
in
great body of work.
It's great.
Thaddeus is here. You want to talk about it? Thaddeus is here. Thaddeus left Toronto sometime in 70. When did you leave? 77. Thaddeus left and said, "I'll be back in 2 years. I'm going for a 2-year position at Mount Allison University." He met Gay, whom he lived with for 40-something years, and had a family and dogs and cats and birds and horses and everything else, right? They shared a life and never came back. He promised me he was coming back. He never came back.
I met a guy in Toronto at a party after Alan Fleming suggested to me, Alan Fleming was the great Canadian graphic designer, suggested to me that I might consider using a view camera. Out of the blue, he suggested that. About a month later, I borrowed an 8x20-inch banquet camera from someone I had no idea who they were. They were never going to use it, and I used paper negatives, and the first body of work I made were portraits of people with their cars, which came out of my time at University of Windsor and car culture there. Detroit was at the top of making big cars. And yeah, and you showed that work, and I think that work has gotten better with time. Just because I can show that work anywhere, and every age group will be coming to it from different places. So that's the magic of great work, I think.
Definitely.
So they're contact prints.
8x20-inch contact prints from paper negatives.
Which they're pretty amazing. So you actually went across the U.S. and some Canadian stops. And London, I think there's also one at Oxford, if I remember. It's a great body of work. It's really people in their cars, and you can see how people cared about their cars and how they dealt with their cars and how much their cars were like them. And so it was a portrait of the human race.
And you were able to bring this body of work, among other great Canadian artists, to a kind of international stage, especially with APAD. Is that
We
correct?
we showed this work in New York. Thaddeus has a number of American museum collections. We sh- and has spoken at a number of after this body of work. Thaddeus did a lot of work that really has to do with the environment, but his work has generally been engaging to those people who adore photography. Probably we haven't, it probably isn't seen enough outside Maine. It's seen in Maine and the people who love Thoreau. How many people here know Henry David Thoreau? Beside oh, you all do. If you teach here, you know. But you'd be surprised how many Canadians, are you surprised how many Canadians don't know Thoreau? So, okay, so when I'm talking about Thaddeus, whatever location I'm in, I ask. So generally, if I'm talking to a group of people, young people at my gallery, and they have no idea who Thoreau is, they don't read Walden in grade 10 like all Americans do, and all Germans do, and all French do.
You have to seek them out here.
You did in Toronto? And did you go to school in Toronto?
Well, I'm sorry, this isn't terribly interesting. I just read Thoreau when I was in high school. I assumed everybody had read Thoreau.
Oh. I'm always surprised how many people don't know Thoreau. So, but Thaddeus did a great body of work, which is an homage to Henry David Thoreau, and it's called 24 Tree Study. So if you have an opportunity to see it, it will be a year from now, you'll see it, not in Toronto, but in New York. So I'll let you know.
Another great Canadian photographer, Carol Marino, kind of championed.
She was another American expat who came from Pittsburgh and moved more and more north from Toronto as the light changed until she got close to Algonquin Park, where she settled. And she's married to Canada's #1 paddle maker, who's Ray Kettlewell. And they canoe at Christmas time. They have been influenced. She has been influenced by Indigenous cultures. Through her photographs, you can see it. And she photographs those things that she grows and she cooks. And they shoot with a bow and arrow, and they shoot deer. And they live basically off the land. You know, yeah, it's an amazing life.
Last, an artist I've learned about through you, Barbara Assman, who I don't think is here right now. Barbara came to your gallery later, but can you talk about kind of your relationship, which I know is a close one, how you came to her work, and sort of how you think of it?
So it's interesting what Barbara came out of the Rochester Institute of Technology, and she went there probably in '67. So Rauschenberg was teaching there, Robert Rauschenberg was teaching there. So she studied with the Americans and Rauschenberg, as you know, was an American artist, painter, image maker who made a combination of things, including one of the first painters, American painters, to actually add photographs to their work. So he was teaching at Rochester, and Barbara studied with him, among other people. And early on, as early as '78, made text-based pictures like these. These started life as Polaroids. Then she would make large color prints of these. When we showed these in New York, like 10 and 15, in the 21st century, 2005, 6, 7, people look at them and say, oh, are you sure you have the date right? I said, yes, the date is right. Why? Because they think Richard Prince was the first one to make text-based photographs. The point is that it is really hard to get Canadian across the border, across any border, even as much work as we do, it's very hard. New York is New York-centric, and London is London-centric, and America is America-centric, and Europe is Europe-centric. So we have a job, Jordan, and everybody here, to really combine our efforts with the people that come from this country or work in this country and make collaborations with people so that the work is seen and understood. So she made text-based before Richard Prince, and of course, he's credited by all of the art historians as being the first. So it's just about, so I look at that stuff and I think, oh, I did such a bad job, because with all the work and all the shows and all the plane trips, they still don't know those things I brought to market. And you think that a lot. So, it's that part's a crazy story.
I find it interesting. We've talked about all this amazing work, and yet I stumbled on this 1989 piece, which has a question or has a statement: photography has no aesthetics and is not a true art form, according to some.
Love that, Brendan. Good for you for finding this.
I had to do the research. What do you make of this? It's kind of hard for me to wrap my head around, honestly, coming after its firm entrenchment in the art world of photography. I just take it for granted. It's, as they say, aesthetic value. Why do you think there was so much kind of hesitancy to accept it?
Well, firstly, there was an attitude, if I can do it, could it be art? I mean, Kodak did all those ads putting a camera in everybody's hand saying everybody could be a photographer. So then there's this whole attitude is if everybody can make one, how artistic can it really be? And so, and also photographers and photography are kind of nerdy. They talk about process and rather than vision. So it isn't really about how it got made or even what's so much in the photograph. It's really how you feel about it or what it means. I think that's what happens. But, you don't know, no art historian starts talking about a painting by saying, and they use this kind of paintbrush, and they use this kind of oil, and they use this kind of medium, and they use gesso on the back. They don't start that way. They start by looking and seeing what's in front of you. And I think photography had the problem that people started talking technical first. And you can't learn by talking technical first. You look at a bridge, you're not talking about how the engineer got it to work. You're talking about how beautiful it works, how it connects, the landscape, to the island out there. So it became a technical issue, and I had to teach photographers to not talk about technical. Don't tell our clients the technical, because you're going to lose them. Talk about what you had in your mind or why that became interesting or important for you, or what your message is, or how you felt, and we try and get people to feel.
Another big part of your life is being a collector and a really sharp thinker about historical photography, especially 20th century modernist photography. I'm going to go through some of my favorites of yours that I've found as I've dug through. Can you talk a little bit about what you're looking for when you're, especially, as you said, at this time when you didn't even have really the criteria, you were just looking at the beauty, kind of what's going through your head when you're digging in the crates?
Yeah, nothing was, it's instinctive.
Yeah.
Nothing really is going, everything, in a way, everything's going through your head. It's sort of everything and nothing. You're using all your sensors, and sometimes you stop. It's like stopping at the magazine on a pen. I didn't go look for Irving pens. It wasn't linear, but I saw a page that looked better than the other pages. It's the same with photographs. You look at a lot of them, and every now and again, something stops you for whatever reason. And for each of us, it's different. Part of this, Robert Frank, which is an atypical Frank, it was meaningful to me. It was in Paris. It was the year of my birth. It was his own right. I don't know. It's a kind of sweet Robert Frank, an atypical Robert Frank. No real reason to love that Frank, right? This is hard not to love that. I mean, Sophie Tauber, our since her MoMA show, now everybody knows who she was. But before that show, which was only, what, 3 years ago or something like that, you know, she was not as famous as Jean Arp, a great, great, great artist. She was an architect, she was an artist, she made textiles, she made photographs, she made models. I mean, it was, even that show showed us the extent to what she was a great artist.
And it occurs to me as we go through these, how
But
many,
go back to the Sophie Tower, because she's behind a dot ahead, and she even obscured her own identity more by she mounted it on a card by Nick Alf, who was a commercial photographer friend of hers, so she would obscure the identity of the maker. I mean, that was a pretty amazing thing for someone to do in 1920.
I was just, so many of these are, photographers are women, and you're especially saying about the importance of showing women photographers who are alive. But I think that this is sort of impulse in your work as a collector to bring to a kind of larger audience some of the ones who've passed who are really really important and underseen.
The Dora Maar was great. That was Tate. That was at a Dora Maar show, the Tate and the Pompidou, and I think it was during COVID, so it got canceled. The Getty. I never saw it because it was COVID, so it was sad. All those COVID shows, all those great museum shows that scholars worked for years on, that just I didn't see that, but that was great. She has the drawing on top of the photo. You know, it's a pretty. I don't know if the date's right on that. It wasn't dated. Yeah, Margaret Bourke-White. Margaret Bourke-White was the only foreign photographer with permission to work in Moscow in 30 and 31 by permission of Stalin. And that is an amazing picture, really, of the work, you know, the work she did. She was such a brave woman. I mean, she was a pilot. She wasn't allowed to fly because she was a woman until her plane got torpedoed. Till her ship got torpedoed, then they let her fly. I mean, that's kind of, you know, women were not given the same abilities to make their work during wartime.
Yeah, and I think so much of what I've learned from your gallery is the history of some of these photographers, these names that I hadn't known before I really immersed myself in a kind of any sort of tradition. Yeah.
Wow, that's a great case of beer, right?
Yeah, that is really great. It's really, all of these are so ahead of their
So
time.
Kazabir, you know, for everybody here, Kazabir was part of the Stieglitz School. Everybody knows Stieglitz and everybody knows Steichen, for those of you who are painters and not academics, but you might not know Gertrude Kazabir, who was really great. But you don't know the women part of the Stieglitz School as well as you know the men. But this spoke to me. So I don't actually own a Stieglitz.
One day.
Maybe.
I came to your gallery at this point when you moved to the distillery, designed so beautifully by Shim Sutcliffe. Can you talk about that move, and sort of were the priorities different? Because as you moved there, you also began to show different artists from different media, you know, painters. Kind of what was the mandate, I guess, as you moved into the distillery?
So the idea was, it was the beginning of the 21st century, and the idea was to go back to my roots and show painting again. And having won the case for photography, no longer people questioned whether or not it was an art form. All the major museums had photo curators, some of them 2 or 3. Photography was being shown by every New York museum in London and Paris, and there was a major photography movement. So I went back to my roots and included photography and video and painting and sculpture. And actually, right now we have on a Larry Poon show, along with a history of photography show. So that's kind of cool. You know, think about it. So Larry's still alive. I think it's so important for me that I love the history of photography work. Don't get me wrong. I adore all those works that you showed, and thank you for showing them. But the living people, it's so meaningful to collect the works while they're alive. And Larry's 86, and he's still making great paintings. And he was delighted to be here and hang his own show and have a show in Toronto. I mean, he comes from New York. He shows in New York. It is the biggest center in the world. He doesn't need to come here, but he does. And it's a big effort for him to do that. And I appreciate that he does that. And people here have been generous and are collecting him. And that's important for all of us because his works are important to look at and they're important to feel them.
Mm.
And they make you feel good. So this gallery was able to show large scale things and small scale objects and has lots of rooms. And there's a mezzanine that has 2 viewing spaces and private viewing spaces. So you can show photographs or video or large scale pictures in 4 or 5 different spaces, which allows us to, it makes it complicated as a business.
Mm.
But so if you have any students that you think are interested, please let me know. It's because there's really work to be done here. Seriously.
In
you
my
know.
preliminary looking through the stacks in the basement, there is an entire history of photography there.
I know. And it's not even all on the computer,
Yeah.
which is crazy. Oh, wow. This is great.
This is great. So as we come to a kind of conclusion, I thought Sandra Mazaris might be a good place to wrap up. She's really investigating a kind of history of photography as both an art and an archive. I'm going to ask you a very loaded question, very big question. Where, having won the case for photography, as you said, kind of what role should galleries play in the further development? I know we've talked a lot about the important, part it plays in facilitating between the academy and museums and the artists themselves. Yeah, I'm just, what's your role?
Yeah, that's an interesting. Well, if you put Sandra Mazaris's work at the center of that conversation, it's a good one to think about having that conversation because Sandra is interested in her work in the male gaze, on the human form and the female form, and has done more than one body of work around this conversation. This is from a series called Damned. Some of them are collages. Sandra draws from the great history of some of the early collage makers between the 2 world wars that she thinks about and she looks at. And she makes her own work. This body of work was made where she got a manual teaching photographers how to light models. And she ripped them out and she repurposed them, painted over them, these women in uncomfortable poses. But it was basically teaching men how to light women, not thinking about the women in any real way, again, about the male gaze. So, and she calls it damned if you do, damned if you do. Don't do. So where is it going? So this is not, I don't know if you'd call it photography or painting. Sometimes we just call it art now. We don't actually distinguish the medium. Sandra, do you want to say something? No, she said no. Sandra, by the way, teaches at Alberta College of Art. She does have lots to say. I don't know where the art world is in a really strange place right now, I think. We've come through COVID. We've seen the world, we've seen the art world, which is more or less a liberal world, go conservative if you look at what's happening in the world. So you see some things happening that aren't very happy for art makers and image makers or art dealers or the people that support those institutions. So it's hard to think about, what happens after November 6th and what will be around after that. Museums are not having the best times of their lives because so many of their supporters are otherwise tied up and thinking about other issues. And so until the world settles down to a happier place, it seems hard. The art world, it isn't the first thing on everybody's mind. And I think that's one of the issues that we're grappling with right now. I think institutionally at University of Toronto and institutionally across most major universities and most major art institutions, most of them and all of us aren't well enough funded to do the jobs that they are ambitious to do and set out to do. And so that's a problem. And let's, I don't know, does anybody here have a solution? I certainly don't. I read the same news and press you all read. It's a good question. Do you have an answer? You're younger than I am. You probably have a better answer. What's your answer?
I'll tell you what I've taken from you. which is
Oh, no.
To be completely confident in the way that you see your art, you see the art that you love, and to trust your own taste, I think is a big thing that I've learned from you. But no, I don't have. I'm trying to learn from you. You know.
Oh, thanks. But trust your own taste I think you formulate it over time, and it's good to have a gut, and it's good to pull the trigger when you can. Always good if you can afford it, buy it. You know, whether it's 20 cents or $20 or $100 or $500 or $5,000. You see it, you like it, you know, you can do it, do it. Don't think about it. It's not a linear thing. It's an emotional thing. It's an emotional response. And the more you live with great things, the more they affect your life in a positive way. And that's how I look at what artists do for my life and do for the life of people who include their works in their homes.
That's a great place to wrap up our conversation. Did anybody have any questions for Jane? I don't.
So Jane, you alluded to your difficulty selling or finding people to buy in the early days of the gallery. And that prompted me to wonder, what was the most perilous moment for your career as a dealer? Was there a moment when it kind of hung in the balance and you might have stopped doing it? And if so, what was that crisis?
Every recession, basically. I forget how many there were, but a lot. Because every time there's a recession, you know, we eventually come out of it, and I always owe a lot of money. And sometimes I have great landlords, and sometimes I don't. Sometimes I have great friends that loan me money. So I've been lucky. It's, I don't know. Like, what is say again, what's the, well, I didn't consider, I remember times when I told friends, I really can't do this again. Like, I just don't think I can manage just another one of these. And then I had good friends who, maybe like Richard, who would say, yeah, you've done it before, you can do it again, and just, you know how to do it, and let me help you think through it. And people who are smarter than I with financial advice, you know, and you claw away at it. But the money's always tough because you always have an overhead, and whether people are buying or not buying, you still have the overhead. And even what's happening now in New York, I mean, you can see all the galleries closing, small galleries, mid-sized galleries. You know, when you have a lack of people buying art, you have a lack of people being able to stay in business. And even, I mean, interesting, it's the same with a fashion designer. Some of my friends and clients were saying, you know, they went to buy new outfits for whatever weddings and fetes they were going to, and they said, there's really nothing on the market if you wanted a new dress. And I said, well, apparently the fashion designers didn't work in the last few years because nobody was buying clothes. Nobody was going out during COVID. The designers took a break. They didn't put anything great on the market because there wasn't any capital to fund, you know, a whole new line. So it's not, you know, everybody understands that when it comes to fashion because everybody buys food and everybody buys fashion. You know, that's a kind of part of mainstream life. People don't think about that so much in the art world. But that is part of my life and part of the life of all the people who make art. You know, that if no one's funding it, it's not existing. Those people who make it can't eat, they can't pay their rents or their mortgages, they can't send their kids to school. You know, they're artists who have, you know, just pull it out of themselves day by day, week by week, month by month. No one measures in on them, and yet, you know, they still have to pay their bills. So our system is we bring it to market. We bring to market what other people make. And if there is nobody to buy it on the market, there is no money flowing through the market. And it's been just tough these last 3 years, you know, for everybody, all of you. I mean, whatever you all do, it's been tough for everybody. So yeah, every time I say I can't do it one more time, and my friends say, yeah, you can do it, and somehow we figure it out, and you keep on going. But I do it because I love it, and I am a collector probably first and foremost. I love the things I buy. I buy ceramics, I buy all kinds of art pieces, you know, tapestries. I at one point collected Peruvian antique weaving bits. I mean, I'm that person who likes the things that people make. But you know, you need a lot of people like that. And mostly here, you need people to trust. You need people to trust their gut. Really buy it, like it, see it, like it, buy it. You know, like a hamburger. You don't need to think about it. You don't need to go home and ask your spouse, or, you know, don't go home and ask your kids, and don't go and ask your banker. Just do it. Yeah, don't buy the sneakers or the handbag. Buy the art. It will affect your life in a positive way. You know, the hard thing is when you think of big wealth, sometimes you think, you know, I'm always asked to do collaboratives. People want to do a wine collaborative, a jewelry collaborative, a fashion collaborative. They say, oh, your gallery's great. It's great because Shem Sutcliffe built it. It is a beautiful gallery. So they want to do collaboratives. We've done a few. Every time we do a collaborative, the jewelry people, my clients end up buying jewelry. My clients end up buying fashion from the fashion guys. And nobody from the other side buys art. That happens all the time. Because when jewelry and fashion's easy, if you go to a restaurant, everybody sees what you are wearing or what you bought. You know, if you buy art, the only people who see it is you and the people you invite into your home. It's a much more personal thing. And so, you know, it takes a different kind of consideration and a different reason and meaning why people acquire art and how they want to live their lives and what they want to live with. You know, it's like having a lousy piece of architecture or hiring a great architect to make something that's beautiful to walk through. And, you know, when you walk through something beautiful, it feels different. It really does. But it, you know, it's a different way of thinking about life and what's important in life. You know, it's not the country club, and it's not those things that everybody sees you do. It's personal. So, but yeah, I probably will. You know, most dealers don't really quit unless they have to. So until the bank closes me, I'm probably around.
Any other questions? I think that's.
I think.
that's
Thank
that.
you, Brendan.
Jane,
Yeah,
thank you.
for putting all
Congratulations
those
again.
slides together. Thank you all for coming, and Joseph and Jordan, you were amazing to put this together. Really, I'm deeply grateful.